Hey y'all, thanks for stopping by. So, when you talk with people online or in person, a lot of the times you'll find that there's some things get lost in translation, especially when you're dealing with broad subjects and topics that people aren't the most familiar with. So, a lot of the times you'll use analogies and idioms to try and bridge that gap with people. I personally love using a good analogy or a good idiom because it's a great way to meet people where they're at when you're talking. No, especially when you're getting into, like I was saying, broad topics, economic systems, philosophic things. Most people don't have all the language needed to really get into the meat of those subjects. And I'm not saying you need to teach them, but what I am saying is if you do want to talk to people about that stuff, sometimes it's good to use language that they can understand. Now, I have noticed a disturbing trend of people feeling uncomfortable using analogies. Some people will say that using an analogy, you need to make sure that it's proper for the situation or that won't get anybody upset or anything like that. I frankly, I feel like with using analogies, most of the time when they're used, it is to invoke a certain response. You know, I think the most common analogy that I see people use that gets that kind of angry response is usually when people are compared to Hitler. That happens a lot, especially in online debates or, really anything like that, where comparisons will be made to either Hitler directly, the Nazi regime, or some sort of fascist power in World War II. I won't try and deny that sometimes people do that just to get you angry. However, there are instances where people are making these analogies and it's worthwhile. At least it makes sense in context to that situation. Whenever somebody uses that, more often, if they're using it properly, more often than not, they're not saying that you yourself are a Nazi or a neo Nazi. They're saying that your position or your idea lines up with something that they've done. That's what an analogy is. It's just comparing something that you know about and showing you how it connects to something that either you're saying or something that you're doing and you're not really making that connection. That's, again, the main problem with that is that people will hear it and say, oh, well, you're calling me a Nazi. No, I'm not. I'm saying what you believe is similar to what they believe. You might not realize that until someone tells you. It is up to you in that instance to try and figure out, is this person only trying to make me mad or are they actually making a good point? Another thing when it comes to idioms, a lot of the times people will hear the actual words themselves and not the meaning behind them. And yes, there are plenty of idioms they have not so great origins. Not going to deny that. One of my favorite idioms to use is hate the sin, not the sinner. And I have noticed pushback when I use that because people always assume that I am being religious about it, that I'm referring to biblical sin. Personally, I don't really believe in the concept of sin. I think it, in its original meaning, it's something that was designed to sell you the cure that is religion, or, for the time, I can't remember the word for it, but essentially buying your way into heaven. People would spend their actual money to try and absolve their sin so they knew they could get into heaven. Hating the sin and not the sinner, whenever I use it, is referring to not hating people simply because they've done something or believe something. All of us are capable of change. And I don't think it's right to hate somebody because they don't know any better or because they don't have the tools to explain themselves better. A lot of the times people just don't know. They've never been exposed to that type of environment. I don't hate people who come from affluent wealth and don't understand the struggle of paying bills or, having a proper diet or having all the time you need to handle everything. There are people who just don't know, that they'll give you the answer of, well, just, buy it or just spend your money on it. I can't hate somebody for that. They just don't know any better. I hate their sin. I don't hate the sinner. That can be used a lot of different ways when you're dealing with people, but in the end of it, you're not talking about biblical sin. You're just talking about the things they believe or the things they've done. I think a lot of us agree with that you can't hate a person. You shouldn't hate a person just because of what they believe, especially if they're capable of change, which I believe we all are. I'm not saying you have to associate with those people, but you have to understand that you don't hate them as a person. You only hate their actions. But that's just how I feel about it. Y'all have a good day.